Oh, hello there. Today we're going to have a look at mosses, a very unique group of plants that, although they are plants, they respond to taxis. They do this in the fertilization stage of their life cycle, and in particular it's the female plant that does this. The female gametophyte is referred to as the archegonia. The archegonia releases sperm attractant. This instigates the sperm to swim towards it. So, although it's a plant, yes, it exhibits ataxis, chemotaxis, and very positively in fact, because the sperm is very motile and can move. That defines taxis in itself. So, the gametophyte initiates its fertilization stage of their life cycle with rain. It waits for rain. And it's the antheridium that in particular needs to have the rain for sperm release. Once water accumulates on the tip of the female, of the male antheridium, it's able to release its sperm because it responds positively towards water. Once it releases the sperm, there's going to be sperm all over the tip of the antheridium. And then further raindrops would make the droplets in the antheridium tip splash out to neighboring archegonium. The archegonium, of course, are the female plant. Once the sperm cells are in the foreign area of pool in the archegonia, it needs to wait and somehow navigate itself to the archegonia. This is very much analogous to a baby finding its way across a city. It's foreign area and it's virtually impossible without a mechanism. The mechanism, in fact, is the sex pheromone or the sperm attractant. The egg, which is enclosed in a venter in the archegonium, the female part, releases pheromones so that the biflagellated sperm can propel itself towards the source of the pheromone. Once the sperm had actually reached the venter, once it's fertilized, then the egg would secrete or release an outer opening, which would further inhibit further fertilization of the nuclei. It's not going to allow more sperm cells entering. So that's taxis, chemotaxis, and mosses. It's very important, and this chemotaxis in itself has enabled the mosses to inhabit diverse regions of our world, from the Arctic polar regions to desert to the damp en-bloc grounds.
Here we have the Sharifus plantae, displaying prominent signs of thigmotropism. The passion fruit is quite an interesting plant, as it displays thigmotropism in both its stems and its roots. First we'll talk about the stems. The stems have tendrils which, when they come into contact with supporting objects, produce auxin and transport it to the untouched cells, which will elongate faster, and that coils around the object. Advantages for the passion fruit coiling around supporting objects is that it can spend less time on secondary growth and use more energy for primary growth and for making fruit and seeds for better reproduction and growth. An obvious advantage for the passion fruit coiling around a supporting object is that it can grow up to where the light intensity is higher than it would be if it didn't coil around. This means it can get more light for more photosynthesis. The roots of the passion fruit plant also exhibits thigmotropism, but in the opposite form of the tendrils and the stems do. It exhibits the negative thigmotropism, whereas the tendrils and the stem exhibits positive thigmotropism. When the roots come into contact with another object, the touch cells produce auxin and elongate, so the cells bend away from the object. This means the roots can grow down with little resistance and can reach areas with minerals and water for its needs.
Tropism is growth of a plant towards the light. The side of the plant closer to the shady side or away from the light produces a hormone called auxin, which causes that side of the plant cells to elongate, as you can see here, causing a curve towards the sun. Most plants exhibit positive phototropism, like this tree here. It moves its chloroplast to the sunny side, and the advantage of the positive phototropism is that they get more sun on that side where the chloroplasts are.
We're in the shade.
I know we're in the shade, but you get the gist. Anyway, some plants also exhibit negative phototropism, but that's mainly in the roots to go towards the dark.
Auxins activate proton pumps. These decrease the pH levels in the cells on the dark side of the plant. The acidification of the cell wall region activates enzymes called expansins. Expansins break down the bonds in the cell wall structure, making the cell walls less rigid and able to elongate. In addition, the acidic environment causes the breaking of hydrogen bonds in the cellulose that makes up the cell wall. The decrease in cell wall strength causes the cell to swell, and this drives the mechanical pressure that drives phototropic movement. A second group of genes, called PIN genes, are the auxin transporters.
Oh, we're on air! We've just examined two different evolutionary mechanisms. However, there are some similarities involved in the system, and contrasts to draw. Well, for one, they're both plants. Although taxis normally occurs in animal species due to their motility, we've just looked at chemotaxis in mosses and how the archegonia releases the sperm, in which the motile sperm can swim towards the source, thereby enhancing fertilization. Now, time to move on to differences. Like most tropisms, sphygmotropism is brought about by the movement and transport of hormone from one area of the plant to another region. It's the auxin in particular that's responsible for this, and the differential auxin concentrations in a particular area would bring about a movement of the plant towards the opposite direction. However, with chemotaxis, it's the motile movement that's the instigator of this mechanism. It's the spontaneously moving sperm cells that enable the whole taxis to actually be brought about, which is released with water. Now this release, of course, makes water taxis by the sperm. The sperm
over the hills and far away.
Phototropism in plants is the growth. The streamer.
Oh my god, I wasn't filming the whole time! Auxins activate proton pumps to so on.
you need and it actually develops into a chlorophyte, which we see right here in one particular moss species. Although I don't really think this is moss.
Time for Teletubbies! Time for Teletubbies!